Welcome back. We're still with Dr. BARA. And before we went on that break, Dr. BARA, you were explaining, the nature of flash floods in Nigeria and why they have become so frequent in recent years. Please continue.
Thank you very much. So as I was saying, flash flood, generally speaking, flooding is beyond climatic borders. Generally there are a lot of other factors. The major driver is climate change. Recently, our climate rainfall pattern is unpredictable with intense downpours happening in shorter periods. And the second one is human activity. Even the climatic impact, the change in rainfall pattern is a result of human activities to some extent. But human activities, on the other hand, such as deforestation, overgrazing, unplanned urbanization, and poor waste management, when we remove trees, when we build our houses on the floodplains, when we clog drainage system with waste, we prevent the land from absorbing water naturally, turning normal rains into a kind of devastating flood. So these are some of the factors. A lot of factors are contributing to it. For example, recently, we find out that people are having a habit of cutting down trees indiscriminately without concern about the environmental implication of their actions. So generally speaking, is the combination of climate change and human action and inaction. That is action in the sense that we cut down trees indiscriminately, we construct roads, we build houses on the floodplains, and a lot of other things. So that is why in most cases, recently a study by the World Bank said that about 70% have poor drainage system is one of the factors, poor drainage infrastructure. So about 70% of Nigerian states have no functional drainage system. So you see, all these contributed, to this incidence of flash flooding. That is when the rain falls, the rain intensity is always on the increasing side because of the issue related to changing climate and the deforestation. There is no enough drainage system. We cut down trees that will otherwise, have been supporting the soil by improving the absorbing capacity of the soil. So a lot of things, naturally speaking, it's our handwork actually, generally speaking. It's our action and inaction that contributes to the devastating impact of the flash floods recently in the country.
Now, some states have constantly been in the news for flash flood disasters. Now, what parts exactly? I'd like to know what parts are most vulnerable to flash floods, and why are these areas more at risk than others?
Yes, thank you very much. So as I just said, there are other factors apart from the rain. It's not just about the rainfall intensity. There are some other factors. For example, a state with a well-developed, well-established drainage system, drainage infrastructure, will reduce its, vulnerability by doing so. And another thing, the topography of an area is also a factor, and the soil type. You find that some soil have a kind of a more water holding capacity than others. So that is their capacity to absorb the runoff is higher than the other one. So it's a combination of its topography, the soil, and the infrastructure, and the planned urbanization. So recently, the population is ever increasing. We are building more houses, more roads, more infrastructures. So we are not concerned about the environmental implications. No EIA is carried out in most of our projects. That is why you find that we build some projects, even state-owned projects at the floodplains areas. So you understand that this will increase the vulnerability of the state. So the most important thing, for example, you can say the northern parts, going by the nature of our soil, the natural, may be more vulnerable if you compare it with maybe some southern states, even though, some may also be highly vulnerable because of their infrastructure and the likes. Recently, you find that in Lagos, there was this instance of flash flooding, mostly because of the blocked drainage infrastructure. So the drainage system were blocked, and then the water have no way to pass, and therefore it becomes devastating. So it is just the issue of, there is a lot we can do about it. It is not just about the natural setting of the city. Yes, it's a factor, but there are 1,001 ways we can avert this incident.
So, what are the ways that we can avert these incidences of flash flooding?
So the first thing is to be considerate about the environment. Whatever, there is a saying that, okay, there, for every action, there is a equal opposite reaction. So if you want to place an infrastructure in an area, you have to do EIA. That is why EIA is very important in at every project. What is the implication of this project? You cannot come and just place your house at the floodplain. If you place your house or build your house at the floodplain areas, you are increasing your vulnerability. You have your own self to blame, when whatever happens to you. So, but and another thing is that to be a kind of replanting trees, plant more trees. We are cutting down trees indiscriminately for farmlands, for fuelwood, and other, domestic usage. So you find that all these have created a lot of issues. So by putting more effort, it's our collective responsibility. All of us are responsible for our own environment. It is our home. We have to create it. We have to protect it for ourselves and our future generations. So the most important thing is to be considered to know the consequences of our actions and inaction. In terms of organization for the government side, we have to have a plan. Our cities are mostly not planned, most especially in the northern Nigeria. To find out that buildings are built, houses are built everywhere without considering, the implications, without considering what happened. There are a lot of these circumstances that warrant, a lot of that increase the vulnerability of the masses. So generally speaking, it's about being environmentally conscious of our own developmental project. Whatever we do, we have to be considerate of our environment. Our land use practice should be in tandem with the environmental, balance, equilibrium. We have to have balance between what we do and the implication on the environment. So generally speaking, it's about the environment. If we treat it well, it will treat us well as well. But if we do otherwise, it is just something else. So it is about doing the right thing, putting the right project at the right places, putting the right infrastructure, improving our infrastructure, especially the drainage system. That is why I said in most cases, it's not just about the rain. Yes, climate change is a factor, but the most important aspect is human induced. It's our own actions and inactions that contributed to all this kind of problems.
Yeah, and you mentioned environmental impact or the implications. So I'd like you to highlight what those implications are. This menace. What are the implications? What are the environmental impacts it has in Nigeria?
Yes, there are a lot of environmental impacts. For example, recently, let's say in 2022, we find out that in northern Nigeria, an entire farmland, is washed out by this flash flood. This is environmental washing away the topsoil, which actually reduces the agricultural productivity of the area. The first is the agriculture. You find out that the topmost soil is being reduced. Exposing the soil to be vulnerable, increasing the issue of land degradation, increasing the issue of water pollution. A lot of toxic substances are carried, during the flooding into our, underground water, into our rivers, into our, a lot of things. So you understand that all these things are very, important. They are very important factors that are affecting our environment in a more negative way. So it is just that we just have to do the right thing, as I keep on saying. It's just about doing the right thing. You cut down trees, you are degrading your land. Little water will come and wash out the topsoil, reducing the agricultural productivity of it.
Now let's talk about the early warning signs or the early warning systems.
So there are a lot of. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Hello?
All right, Dr. Bara, I was asking about the early warning systems. You know, we have agencies like NEMA, they bring out these reports on areas that are, you know, prone to flooding or that will experience certain types of environmental hazards or disasters. But most communities are still caught off guard because they lack access to these early flood warning signs or these early flash flood warning signs. So what do you think can be done to effectively, you know, pass on these warning signs? Because those that live in the rural areas or, you know, in areas where they don't have access to this information, they don't know about it, and then when it comes, it affects them so much drastically. So what do you think can be done, and what steps can be taken to have a more effective way of passing on these warning signs and evacuation systems as well?
All right. The first thing is, you know, the forecast have to be accurate first. You know, accurate forecasting is the most important, because recently, if you talk to a rural man, you know, you have no trust on the forecast, because there are a lot of things happens, you know, with the forecast, with due respect to NIMET forecast and all these things. They will forecast something and something else will just come on. So you find out that the accuracy of the forecast will increase the trust of the local community to believe and be, you know, to agree and be using this forecasting system. So another thing is the issue of the community engagement. You know, educating citizens is important. Education citizens, you know, you have to educate citizens that, okay, this thing is not just about the environment, it's about our survival and our prosperity. So it is not just a hopeless situation. We just have to be together. All hands must be on deck. It's our collective responsibility to do all these things. So the most important thing is the accurate weather forecasting. The forecasting has to be accurate. Whatever you tell them, if you tell them something this year and it comes out negative, maybe something else happened entirely without explanation, and it did not come out to explain to them that, okay, this is actually what happened and all these things. So the rural communities are not in touch with all these things. A lot of awareness, you know, they need to improve on the awareness system, citizen education, educating citizens, you know, about the implications, or, you know, the importance of the weather forecasting, informing them the impact. Recently, there is you know, there is alert by NIMET about the possibility of floods in some part of Nigeria, in some states, you know, most especially within the northern part of Nigeria. So so many people will just look at it and just will not take it serious, because a lot of things have happened, as I told you. You know, the forecasts have to be accurate. That is the most important. And then, you know, they have to be, the citizens, all stakeholders, most especially the rural communities, need to be carried along, you know, to be emphasized that they are also stakeholders in this fight against flood or flash flood.
All right, it seems we are having some network issues with Dr. Bara, but we're looking at, you know, the flooding, the flash flooding, and how it is impacting the environment in Nigeria. And we're looking at, you know, the rural areas and those that do not have access to this information, particularly from NIMET, when they have their predictions of areas that are prone to these issues. But we'll go on a break, and hopefully when he returns, we'll continue the conversation.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Health is more than a diagnosis. It's your lifestyle, your choices, and your future. Join us on Inside Health, your weekly deep dive into the stories, science, and solutions shaping your well-being. From expert interviews to real-life journeys of healing and hope, we cover it all.
One of the complications of cancer management or treatment is they have, some of them, at one point in time, you see them having anemia. Okay, so you see them at times being transfused. But at the same time, you come in with the diet.
Nutrition, mental health, innovations in medicine, fitness, and everyday wellness. Whether you're managing a condition, staying informed, or just living your best life, Inside Health is your trusted guide.
I'm Tigiti Agorom, and I'll be with you every week on Inside Health, only on Signature TV.
Welcome back, Dr. Bara. Please continue with your response to, what practical steps can be taken to properly pass across the information of the early warning signs to those who don't have access to it. Please continue.
Thank you. So as I said, the most important thing is to keep, the accuracy of the forecast. And another thing is carrying the community along. We're all stakeholders, emphasizing the fact that we're all stakeholders, that is community engagement. So for example, we're doing the awareness campaigns, through jingles, radio stations, and the like, telling them, look, these things is a very serious menace that we need to actually be observant about, because it costs us a lot of things, so many lives were lost, and a lot of infrastructures were destroyed, and a lot of businesses were destroyed, and all these things, they need to understand the implications. Most importantly, the implications of their actions and inactions. A lot of people are disposing of their waste indiscriminately without considering the environmental implications. They just thought that, okay, I can just do whatever I wish to the environment. So people need to understand that, the environment is our immediate constituency. We just have to be considerate of how we treat the environment. The way we treat the environment is the same way the environment will treat us. We have our own environment, we have to work with it in a more sustainable way. Our land use practices have to be in a more sustainable way for our own good, for our own safety, for our own prosperity, and of course for the future generation to come in without being jeopardized to enjoy the same thing we are actually pushing aside.
Right, now, just before we wrap it up, how would you say, or how would you assess, the government's response when it comes to preventing and managing flash flood disasters?
Okay. Well, the major thing is that the government have to be on the list, because whatever we do, about it, it has to be a kind of government that will take the major responsibility. For example, take, for instance, the issue regarding, the cutting down of trees indiscriminately. People are cutting down the trees, and then, there is no enforcement. There is no law, even though the law is there, but there's no enforcement. There is no enforcement. They are not enforcing that law to say, look, whoever cut down trees, this is the penalty. And then it has to be enforced on people. People have to be punished for their actions. People have to be taxed for their actions, and a lot of other things. So the first thing is enforcement. Government have to enforce those laws. The laws are there. They have to enforce it. Another thing is about infrastructure. The government have to invest more on the drainage infrastructure. As I said, the World Bank said about 70% of Nigerian states have no functional drainage system. So they have to enforce. They have to, invest on the drainage system to have a better infrastructure that can reduce the menace of all this, flash flood. And most importantly, carrying the community along. A lot of awareness campaign. Government cannot do it all alone, because it is our collective responsibility. Just as I said, we just have to do the needful, all of us together, to save their environment. It is not, as I said, it's not just it's not a hopeless situation. We can, turn the tide by doing the right thing. So the government have to enforce those laws, issues regarding cutting down of trees, issues regarding waste disposal, issues regarding, overgrazing, issues regarding unplanned urban expansion, urbanization. All these things have to be put in place for us to have a safer and less vulnerable environment.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. AMINU BARA. It's a pleasure speaking with you this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Save Nature TV, news in your pocket.